Do you have a child who's struggling, or one that's highly sensitive and has a hard time being in the world? Or that you'd simply like to do better, or they're acting out? So there's a variety of things that can happen, as we all know. And we have a free webinar coming up in terms of how to help transform some of those energies. So I'll unpack that for you. But before that, probably useful for me to tell you a little bit about who I am, so you'll decide whether you want to bother listening or not. So my background is couple and family therapy. I've been in the helping field for over 50 years. I worked pardon me, for 50 years. And I have worked with uh, families and children related to, connected to the child protection system for 10 years. And so children running away, children acting out in a variety of ways, and et cetera, et cetera. And before that, when I first started out, I worked in a group home for kids who were really struggling. That was after my bachelor's degree and before my master's and all my training in family therapy. So I was wondering, how can we possibly help those kids? So we tried a variety of things, a broad variety of things, and some of it was really helpful. Like my training in family therapy was really helpful. And looking at what is going on in terms of the individual, if they got attention deficit disorder and etc. So that kind of stuff is really helpful. It wasn't enough. I wasn't happy. So I had to look more broadly, and for those of you who are satisfied with traditional methods, I recommend you stop here and don't bother listening because you don't need me. So for some of the rest of you, there's a variety of things that happen, and some of it is based on very strong research. Like for example, we can carry ancestral trauma. So let's pretend your ancestors, so grandma or whoever, went through major difficulties. So they might have been at war, for example, survived the Holocaust, for example. There's research that shows that the kids that come from those people, the trauma gets passed on through their DNA. So they're more likely to be stressed and so on. So this goes on to the kids, their children, and then the children after that, and etc. So that's one example. This is totally based on research, and I have seen nothing whatsoever in the traditional helping field that helps with this. Although we've had to develop methods to transmute those things. Another example is there's some research, it's not well known, there's some research that shows that while you were pregnant with your child, the mother was pregnant with the child, the fetus is very sensitive to what goes on. So if the mother was depressed, if there was anxiety in terms of money not coming in, if somebody didn't approve of your relationship with your beloved, etc. So the ancestral trauma and the stuff in relation to the womb really impact your child. For some, there's no sweat and it doesn't affect them or in terms of their behaviors, in terms of how they function in the world. And for some, especially highly sensitive kids, they can be really deeply impacted. So they sit on the couch. You got a 24-year-old in your basement sitting on the couch playing video games and doing social media and etc. For example. Or you have a daughter who's doing social media and picks up all this hateful messages and so on there. And they shut down. So there's the possibility that they were doing fine until recently, but there were these historical things. Now they're doing some things that whether it's a social media or drugs or whatever, they're impacting them, and old unresolved issues are triggered that come up to the surface, and they need to be transmuted. And lots of kids end up being sent to group homes and etc., especially in the U.S. Um, but other kids end up being rejected, or you try to put them in a tight box and it doesn't work. So my suggestion to you is we need to look more deeply. For a lot of people, they don't believe in past life things and so on. So we're going to do a little bit regarding that in this webinar that we have coming up, in terms of it's a guided meditation for your child, but also more broadly for your family. Let me unpack some of this a little bit. So one of the aspects is that if there are difficulties in the family, let's say there's conflict, and you and your ex separated 5 years ago, and your child from that relationship was doing fine. But there's research that shows, and I wrote a book on relationship breakdown. It's an area that I know fairly well. There's a book that shows, pardon me, there's research that shows that children caught in the middle, for boys are more likely to act out, and for girls, they're doing fine. They do fine at school. Relationships later on, they have a really hard time with that because they have an internal map and they have this energy from the conflict that went on 5 years ago when you were separating. So there's various other aspects. There's conflict within the family and so on, more broadly. Conflict between you and grandma. Conflict between your child and another sibling, or your child and dad, for example. Some of that can be simply, the parenting, and you need to behave, the parent needs to behave differently, or the child needs to behave differently, blah, 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 that kind of stuff that we all know about. But some of it can be past life stuff. And this is where, for some of you, you're going to say, oh, I'm not into past life, I don't want to hear it. So in the guided meditation that I'll do with you, this upcoming call, those of you who are going to see this later, you can get the recording later. We're going to be doing clearing regarding all of these, so including for the parents, between the parents, for the child, between the child and the parents, for the child in relation to what was going on in the womb, and etc. So if you're concerned about your child, whether they're 3 years old or 12 or 27, you may want to sign up for this. So first, let's do a little bit of transformational work. I'll give you a bit of an example in terms of some of what we do. Part of it is I work with various energies. So the type of work that I do, it's not just individual, couple, and family therapy. I've had to go more and more broadly. So energy psychology is invaluable in terms of healing trauma and so on. But also, I work with visualizations of various types, working with higher beings, working with the unmanifest, the divine, to help clear some of the stuck energies. So I'll give you a little bit of an example. Some of it won't, some of this might not fit for some of you. Part of what we do is we teach people how to transform all these things. So we have a webinar series called Multidimensional Transformation that teaches people how to assess very precisely where's the stuckness and how to transform it. Okay, so we've developed a bunch of charts, and so I'm going to use that, be guided by the universe, by spirit, by your higher guidance, your higher power, if you will, in terms of some clearing. Page 10, I'll show you. So here's chart 10. It relates to energy between the couple, so between between the parents, between the two parents, or between the child and one of the parents. Or it could be between the child and somebody else, like a bully at school. Like I was bullied at school, so I totally get it. In elementary school, so greatly impacted me. And then in high school, I was a French Canadian going to English school, and so prejudice, not huge, but some prejudice and so forth. So I get the various energies like that can really impact your child, and you may not be conscious, you may not know whatsoever what's going on. And as you know, there are some kids that end up committing suicide because of the bullying and so forth. So there can be stuff that's going on internally in one of the subpersonalities of the child. There can be stuff at the soul level in terms of past life. There can be stuff at the cellular level, DNA, in relation to ancestral trauma, in terms of what was going on in the womb, and in relationships between people, and also what's going on in the world more broadly, in terms of global warming and people in high anxiety around them, especially highly sensitive kids. They inhale that and they're really impacted by it. One other example I think is absolutely totally insane, but it's reality, is that I lived in Vancouver, Canada for a while, and one of the schools had been a jail, and they transformed it and they turned it into classrooms. For those of you who are concerned about energy and so forth, imagine the impact on sensitive kids with this kind of stuff. And guess who gets blamed if the kids act out? Not those people, not those people who ended up deciding on let's have a school over there and etc. Certainly not the builders and not certainly not the teachers. It's the kids. Your kid's a problem. So there's a blame issue that goes on there. So you can get blamed, your kids can get blamed, and it can be sort of indirect and sneaky and so on, but still get blamed. One of the aspects is I worked with First Nations, so native, in Canada we call them natives or First Nations, kids, Aboriginals. I worked with them for a number of years as part of my work as a family therapist, and after that, adults who'd gone to residential school and so on. So that there's ancestral trauma. Some of them had gone to residential schools directly, so I had to help them with that. Some of them were kids of parents who'd gone to residential school, and there was bullying and hatred and etc. In some countries, they were tracked down and killed just because of who they were, and etc. Right? So there's various types of trauma to consider. All of this is really important, and your child may be acting out because of 1, 2, or 3 or more of these reasons. So if you're concerned and you feel powerless, you can learn how to transmute all of this, and we have a free webinar coming up that you may want to consider. Okay, so the third energy between I got that between one and another person. Just 1 second, let me look more closely. There can be a variety of energies as well. Like there can be just dark energies in the world. So let me work at clearing some of this in relation to focus on your child as the center, and then we'll clear the context in terms of relationship between your child and others who are having a negative impact. So it could be divorce stuff that happened 5 years ago. It could be related to a bully and so on. So your child in relation to others. Okay. So this is an example of what I'm going to do now is an example of what we do. So you have a feel for whether you might be interested in doing more of this or not. So if you're Christian, you can ask for Christ to help with this. If you're Hindu, you could ask for a Krishna or a Shakti, and etc. and so on. If you don't believe in divine, imagine the universe, if you're okay with that, or Mother Earth. So do it in a way that feels right for you. But I'll work with particular beings as I'm guided, and you're going to translate and do it in a way that feels right for you. Okay, so let's ask for Lords of Karma, a unicorn to clear for your child, clear your child's energy field, their aura, clear the etheric layer, emotional, mental, Buddhic, atmic, galactic, and so on. Clear the energy of your home, the same high beings to clear all the rooms, clear the land where you are. Might have been a war or whatever in the past. Might have been tenants or owners that ended up going through a divorce, and that affects your child. Kids these days are more sensitive. Most kids are more sensitive than their parents. So your child may be really feeling some things very intensely that the parents have no clue about. Okay, so then you wonder, what's the matter? And then you go see a whole variety of professionals and so on, and get all kinds of diagnoses and recommendations that don't work. Let's ask to clear the energies between your child and the various family members to begin with, and I'll do more broadly after. So child in relation to mom, in relation to dad, grandma might be an issue, a sibling might be an issue, older sibling. Let's ask for Goddess energy to help with this. So Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, let's clear that. Just be in greater peace. Your child may be impacted by if you were affected by if you were sexually abused, for example, or if you had some other adverse childhood experiences. There's piles of research on that now. That's for greater peace in relation to this. Clear in relation to your gang, so the people you grew up with. Clear the energy for your child, all those various aspects. Imagine your child no longer being caught in the middle, for example. No longer impacted by the conflict that you had with your ex over there. So there's a variety of things here, and we're not clearing it all because it's complex. The child may end up having hatred of life, and they might blame themselves. They might feel, I shouldn't have been born, I don't want to be here. So therefore they do drugs and etc., etc. Complex. And in the guided meditation that we'll do, so the brief webinar that we have coming up, we'll do clearing regarding a whole bunch of these. So if you're interested, sign up below, and we'll clear more broadly. So part of me feels like clearing more broadly and so on, but you get the picture. That's enough for now for you to decide whether I want this or no way, this guy's totally nuts. Want nothing to do with him. Okay, you take care for now. All the best with you and your child and the broader context, the family and so on.